next topic, that is what are the different SQL tuning tools available to DBA that are provided by Oracle, like that are inside the Oracle database. All right, so we'll look at those tools. And so the different tools that we have inside the database, like guys, there are two, like you can segregate the tools into two categories. One is, okay, before that, SQL Tuning Tools. So the first one is automatic tools. That means these tools, you can just take the help of these inbuilt tools inside the Oracle database and work on the database performance. And then you have some manual tools where you look at the data and then you define what is right or wrong. Basically, the automatic tools will give you some recommendations, and like the tools itself will tell you what to do or what can you do in order to improve the database performance. But with the manual tools, okay, let me write it, manual tools. With the manual tools, you get the picture of the stuff going on, and then you take the call as to what is right or wrong. So let us look at what are the some of the automatic tools that are available inside the database. The first one is ADDM, automatic database diagnostic monitor. What it will do is it will run against the database for a particular period of time, and it will provide recommendations on what you can do or what changes you can make to your database in order to improve the performance. So ADDM is a type of report that helps you diagnose your database. All right, so it is more inclined towards database. What changes can you make inside your database to improve the overall database performance? Next is the AWR report. So automatic workload repository. What happens is inside your database, Oracle tends to take snapshots inside the database. Now, the frequency of this snapshot is every hour. So that means every hour Oracle will take the snapshot inside the database and see what is the load on the system, like what work is going on, what SQLs are being executed, how much memory is being used, how many calls, how many reads, how many writes, how many inserts, what are the buffers, how many buffers are being read. Everything, complete repository will be kept inside these snapshots. Now what Oracle does is, like, it keeps those snapshots only for 7 days, and it will continue to auto delete those snapshots, so that it otherwise you will all have AWR stuff inside your database. So it needs to remove that data also. So with the AWR report, what you get, and guys, this is the most critical report inside the database. And technically, if let's take, I'm talking hypothetically, if we are taking a performance tuning, if I'm taking a performance tuning training, then I think 3 days I will invest only on teaching how to read an AWR report, because reading it in itself is a complete different zone. Because if you know how well to read an AWR report, and as like one of our friends suggested us, will definitely show you how to generate an AWR report, and what are the critical stuff that you can see inside the AWR report that will help you improve the performance. We'll see it, okay? The next automatic tools that we have is the SQL Tuning Advisor, and this is important. The SQL Tuning Advisor will look at your SQLs, and Oracle will give you some recommendations as to what you can do in order to improve the SQL. So the best part is you can use SQL Tuning Advisor right away in the tuning of the SQL phase, and that's our goal, and we'll look at it in some time. The next automatic tool that you have inside the database is SQL Access Advisor. Now this Access Advisor, remember we have this access path. The same thing, it will give you advices on like how or what can you do inside the database that will improve the SQLs for the accessibility of the data or the records. Most of the times the recommendations will be inclined towards the indexes or creating a foreign key, and then improving the readability of the data. So that's like how fast can you access the data. That's the SQL Access Advisor. And I'll be very honest, guys, I think I've used it very less in my career, because everything starts with AWR. So most of your tuning answers you get in AWR, then you can get it in SQL Tuning Advisor. And most of the times we also work with ADDM. And there is again another report, that is ASH report. And this ASH report is active session history. Let's take what exactly is the user actively doing for the past 1 hour. Those kind of reports you get with the active session history, right? So for the past 2 hours, the user Oracle who's connected to the database, what exactly the user is doing. So that will give you reports exactly for the sessions that are running inside the database. So active sessions, okay? So ASH you can run only when the sessions are actively running inside the database. After that, we also have other tools, but I think those are rarely used tools. One is SQL Plan Management. I'll write it for you, SQL Plan Management. I have hardly seen somebody using it. And then you also have SQL Performance Analyzer. So people use these two reports very less, but what the beauty about SQL Performance Analyzer is, in your 12C OEM, when you see the reports in the Enterprise Manager, mostly it will get you the reports from the SQL Performance Analyzer. All right. So these are the basic automatic tools that are available, which allows you to kind of like, they also give you some recommendations that will help you to improve your database, but not all recommendations are good. And I'll come to this point once I write down the manual tools. So there are a couple of manual tools that you can use to influence the SQL tuning. The first one is execution plans, right? The next one is TKPROF Utility. And then third one is hints and optimizer hints. I'm not a particular fan of hints. A lot of DBAs, they say like, okay, hints are good. I'll talk about it, why it is not good. Execution plan, as I mentioned earlier, as a DBA, you must be able to see what execution plan the optimizer is choosing, so that you can decide by looking at the execution plan whether it is good or bad. And depending on the execution plan, you might decide what changes you want to make inside the database or to the table that will impact the execution plan. So the execution plan is very important, guys. Very, very, very important when it comes to, again, SQL tuning. So out of all these, the execution plan is very important. As a DBA, you should know how Oracle is interpreting the SQL. When you say select star from some table and then define, I'll give you one example that's better. So select star from employees where EMP name, or just consider it as first name, is equal to Smith. All right, this is one query. And then select star from EMP where EMP number is equal to 1111. All right, now these two SQLs, of course, they are querying the employee table, but the way they find the data inside the table is different. Over here, you are using a column in the where clause which does not contain unique values, or in other terms, there are no indexes on it. Okay, and guys, again, if you don't know about index, don't worry about it. All right, because I'm going to talk about indexes. So in the EMP number column, if you already know, there is like employee number will always be a primary key, and I think from your past experience, you know that employee number is a primary key column. So over here, what we are doing is we are using a primary key index. And because of this index, it's easy to find the record for this employee ID. But in this case, there is no index on the column, like employee name is not a primary key. So in this case, what happens is the complete table scan will happen. So over here, what's happening is full table scanning will happen. That means Oracle will go and look at each record inside the table. That means it will scan the entire table, and then it will find out where Smith is and then give the output. But in this case, what happens is it will directly go to the primary key index, and from the index it will find out the 1111 value, and from there it will pick up the row ID. And guys, don't worry at all like how this works, because once we are in index, I'll talk about all this again. And from the row ID, pull the block from the disk, right? Or we can say that get the row. All right, so can you see over here, this is full table scanning is going on in this query, and in this query index scanning is happening, or I'll short it up saying like index scanning. All right, so over here the data retrieval is faster. Now how good will it be? These queries look very simple right on the screen, but in real time, of course, you will not see these simple queries. So you need to know what's happening inside or when the user is running the query. So that is what you get the details from the execution plan. You need to know what's happening inside the query or inside the database, and what execution plan the optimizer is generating in order to finish or get the SQL executed. So that's why execution plan is very important as a DBA. TKPROF utility, very simple. Sometimes your database generates a lot of trace files along with the alert log. Some of the trace files are not human readable. So what you can do is you can use the TKPROF utility and convert those trace files into human readable format and then read them. So use sometimes, but of late I think I haven't used it for a long time. And hints, guys. Okay, this is important. Let's take your optimizer is generating a different plan, but what you can do is inside your SQL query, you can give a hint to force optimizer to not to use the usual execution plan, or you can give a hint saying like, let's take the optimizer is using index 1, you can tell that okay, don't use index 1, use index 2. So that way what happens is you are telling the optimizer, or you're giving hints to the optimizer to run in a non-traditional way. And this is bad, very bad. It is good for experiments, but I'm personally not a fan of hints, and I would recommend you guys to not to create an application code that contains hints. I'll give you a good reason in this one. You will run into trouble when the database upgrades happens. Let's say you're upgrading from 10G to 12C. Of course, there you can't directly upgrade method is a different way, but let's take you upgraded your your database from a previous version to a latest version, and in the latest version the optimizer is smart enough, because every version has a new update to the entire database. So optimizer is smart enough to handle your query. That point of time, the hints that you are using inside your application will actually slow down the queries. Maybe in 10G that hint is working for the application and giving a great output, but when you upgrade the database it will slow down technically, because now the optimizer is smart enough and it is considering the hint that you're providing in a negative way. So guys, if you have any questions related to hints, I think I'm not the right person, because I'm personally not fan of hints. But what I love is the execution plans, reading the execution plans. using the SQL Tuning Advisor, using the AWR report, using the ADDM report. I love ASH reports when a session is already actively inside the database and I want to know what exactly the session is doing. And if I am using the Enterprise Manager Cloud, I will go with SQL Performance Analyzer. So guys, because our time and other stuffs are limited, we can't go through each and every different reports. So what we will be doing is the most critical one. I'll be walking you through three things. One is execution plan, how to find, how to read an execution plan and figure out different stuff inside the execution plan. I will walk you through AWR because that's again important. Even if you want to try to avoid it, it's still important. And then SQL Access Advisor, not SQL Access Advisor because we rarely use it. SQL Tuning Advisor is what I want to show you because this is very important, both from your certification and from your job perspective. So you should know how to run the Tuning Advisor to get the recommendations from the database and see what importance or what changes you can do. Guys, any doubts on the like whatever we have discussed till now before I move on to talk about the database optimizer?
Hello, Aaron.
Yes, Ikechi.
Yeah. Are you going to show this one in practice?
Sorry?
Are you going to practice this one, SQL Tuning Advisor in the terminal?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thanks.